Alright, I'm back. Hi. Thanks for sticking with me. I had some pretty bad technical problems, and somebody was wondering in the chat, I guess, if I was using Windows, and yeah, I am. So that was a big fail. That's lesson number 1 in communication. Don't use Windows. And make sure your computer is cooled off. So, alright, thanks a lot for everybody for sticking with me. There's a lot of other good talks going on right now on other channels, so I don't blame you if you left for a while, but maybe you'll come back or catch this talk on archive. Okay, so I'm just going to start talking. Hopefully my computer won't blow out again. And in thinking about what I wanted to say today, I started off, I guess, talking about how easy it is to just talk to people about freedom all the time. You can do this every day. And I think it's important to practice doing that. Every opportunity you get, just talk to people. This is what I do, and a lot of my friends too. And you can only get better from there. One thing about us as liberty activists, I guess, is that we have something really unique in that we have this firm philosophy. We have a really solid groundwork for the foundations of our ideas. And we're out here broadcasting this message that we believe in persuasion rather than coercion, right? We don't want to use the government to force people to do things. We don't want to, even in our personal lives, many of us don't want to force people to do things. And so I think it's really incumbent upon us to get really good at persuasion and really good at making ourselves, making our ideas so attractive and so good on their own, just being beacons, where people will want to talk to us and will want to embrace those ideas because they're just so good on their own. Nobody's forcing them to do anything. So I think that's one thing that's really important. A lot of us could get bogged down in these kind of arguments, debates, and these discussions where the style of the conversation is not really often conducive to listening or to really sharing ideas. I mean, I've seen a lot of kind of libertarian arguments where there's this really aggressive tone. Neither person is listening to the other one, and both people are kind of just waiting to get their own thoughts out and waiting to say anything against what the other person is saying. And I think we all know that that's something that isn't too effective when we're talking about communication, but we all fall into that trap. Every single one of us. I mean, I've done it myself many times. So I think one of the keys to avoiding that is just to realize that it happens and to go out of our way to avoid it. And I think the way that we can do that is by using sort of this style of empathetic connection with the other person that we're talking to. And I'll be saying a lot about that in this talk. It's basically what we're about. So, yeah. So, basically, I'm going to be drawing a lot in this talk from a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. He is a mediator who has worked all over the world, mediating disputes, between all kinds of people. And this topic is not really new. It's been kind of discussed a lot in the blogosphere recently, and on the podcast. Wes Bertrand from Complete Liberty Podcast was the one who first told me about nonviolent communication. And I thought it was really valuable in that it really applies to liberty. And ever since I started to learn about it, it's really changed the way that I interact with people, especially when talking about liberty. So the biggest thing that nonviolent communication teaches us, I think, is that people need certain things. Everybody kind of wants to feel connection. They want safety. They want security. They want, their basic needs to be taken care of, like food, water, shelter, that kind of thing. They want affection, love. Those are just a few, but humans have these fundamental needs. And feelings, so says Marshall Rosenberg, stem from these needs, either being met or not being met. So when one's needs are met, that person feels good. And when one's needs are not met, the person does not feel good. And so basically the basic gist of it is that if we can recognize that fact and we can connect with other people's feelings and needs, then we'll be able to go a lot further with them in terms of our conversation. We'll be able to really understand where they're coming from. They're going to understand where we're coming from. And we'll create the quality of connection where both people will want to meet each other's needs. And now, at this point, it probably sounds a little bit abstract. I wonder if you're thinking, oh, she's talking about all this touchy-feely stuff. Well, it's not. And this really applies to talking to people about liberty. Because when somebody says something like, well, I think your ideas are nice, but I just don't think a world with no state could work. What they may be expressing, even if they say it in a lot less nice way than that, is that I'm worried about how my needs for safety and other things like that are going to get met in a world where there is no government. And so it's our job to show them, I think, how those needs will get met in a stateless society. So in order to do that, we have to empathize. And so I was hoping to have Allison here so that we could somebody, I just saw a chat comment that I'm going to answer. He says, are we as audience participants filling your needs as an unconference speaker? How can we be even better? Well, I like questions for sure, and thanks for asking. And then somebody else says in the chat, critical conversations. 2 points from the book: make it safe for everyone, allow everyone to contribute meaning. And yeah, I think those are definitely good points for communication. Creating a safe space where people feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and feelings with you, and they don't feel judged, right? Because when someone feels judged, they're less likely to tell you what's on their mind. The quality of the connection goes down, and the conversation's more likely to kind of get defensive, and from there it's hard to make progress. So cool, well said. Thanks for the comments. Okay, so what I would like to do is, if anyone, we're going to try this again, if anyone would like to do some role plays with me, they're not coming up now, but in a couple minutes. If anyone would like to do some role plays, please add me on Skype. You can get me on Skype at stephanie.r.murphy, and we're going to try to put some role plays at the end of this call. And I'll put my Skype name in the chat window. Alright. So, someone in the chat says, do you think the libertarian argumentative mentality is keeping women away? And that's a really interesting question, because I think that there are a lot of things that keep women away from the liberty movement, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely this kind of cultural meme that women should be people pleasers and should strive to minimize conflict at all costs. And arguments about politics have the potential to be really high conflict because people have strong opinions about them and so forth. And so, yeah, I think it is possible that sometimes those things keep women away, especially if they're in that cultural norm, I guess, of being mediators, being peacemakers, and people pleasers, and so forth. Now, is that a problem with culture, basically, that women are kind of encouraged to be that way? Maybe it is, yeah. But I think you can kind of break down those barriers by talking about politics, or I hate to say politics, what I really mean is a stateless society. I think you can break down those barriers by talking about it in a certain way that empathizes with the person you're talking to and identifies what they're looking to get out of that conversation and what they need. So basically, yeah, these are the techniques that I want to put forward as positive techniques for communication, and then I think we can actually get to some role plays because I had a couple of Skype requests. So thanks. Okay, so when you're talking to someone about liberty, I think the first and foremost, the most important thing to do is listen. This is just so neglected, but it's so important. Let the other person explain where they're coming from, make an effort to understand them, and ask questions to make sure that you actually are understanding, because sometimes people say things and you interpret it one way, but that's not really what they mean. And in the listening process, I think it's also important to show kind of a basic level of respect. Even if you're dealing with someone who you may not necessarily respect, for instance, you know, someone who works for the state, I know that a lot of people say, well, why should I respect them? You know, they're state, they do horrible things, they work for the state, they hurt me, they aggress against my friends. And yes, all that may be true, but remember, they're also a human being. And at some point in your own life, you know, maybe you bought into the same ideas that they're buying into, right? Like, at some point in your life, you probably thought that the only way society could work is if there's a state. And you probably thought that it was good to have so-called law and order, and that, you know, rewards and punishments are the best way to get people to do what you want them to do. And maybe now you don't necessarily have those same ideas. So, I don't know, I guess just try to get where the person is coming from. And if you can get that, even if you don't agree with it, it's going to register with them. And they're going to say, hey, this person that I'm talking to is really making an effort to understand where I'm coming from, and they will appreciate that. And I think that goes a long way to foster a connection. Okay, so listening is really important, as I just said. So the next step after listening is empathizing. And when you empathize, what does that mean? Well, empathy is one of the things that makes us human. It's really unique to humans. I mean, there's some other animals that can kind of see other animals doing things and copy what they're doing, and you know, some animals have self-awareness and stuff like that. But you know, there's been the last decade of research in neuroscience has really shown that there are these neural pathways in humans, including mirror neurons, which allow us to watch what's happening with another person and to a certain extent feel it ourselves, and to really understand on a deep level what that other person is experiencing and where they're coming from. So this is what we have to use as people who want to spread these great ideas about freedom, is our capacity as human beings to empathize really strongly with others, and to show them that we can experience pretty much the same thing that they're experiencing, because that helps foster this, you know, this knowledge that we're all human beings here, and we're connecting with each other on a level that recognizes that, our humanity. So I think to empathize, one of the things that you have to do is listen kind of without judgment. And it's hard to say, I mean, it's hard to say that because we, as libertarians, you know, a lot of us have this really strong philosophical basis. We're constantly making moral judgments, and we're constantly thinking about right and wrong and the best ways to live our lives. But when you listen to someone without judgment, it's kind of different. It's just, you're just getting their perspective. You're just trying to understand where they're coming from, and you're just kind of reaching deep to find out if there's a way that you can empathize with them and understand where they're coming from and what they're experiencing. So you're thinking about maybe what they need that they're not getting, right? Even if they're, maybe you're in an argument, or maybe it's kind of ramping up to an argument, right? We've all seen this happen when a situation escalates. We're talking about freedom with someone, the situation starts to escalate, people's voices raise, the tone gets different. I think that's when you really have to stop and just step back from it and remember that this is also a human being that I'm talking to. Maybe I don't like some of the things that they're doing, but they're just trying to get their needs met just like I am, and maybe they're doing it in an unfortunate way, but that's what they're doing. So, yeah, so listen without judgment and empathize. And another thing that goes a long way towards empathizing with another person is guessing how they're feeling and what they need or what they want. And even if you guess wrong, you're making an effort to understand their perspective, and a lot of people appreciate that, and they'll correct you, if you're wrong. But at least you're making an effort, and at least you're kind of guessing. You're making an effort to meet them halfway and to understand where they're coming from. So in a conversation like this, you've listened to the person that you're talking to. You get where they're coming from. You're showing them empathy. The only thing that's left to do is respond in a way that reflects their feelings and their needs, and try to address and get at what they're wanting. So I know this is all really abstract up to this point. So I think what we'll try to do, and I hope I won't have any more technical problems, is I think we're going to try to do some role plays. And I was hoping to have Allison here to do a couple of them with me. We had thought of a few before this talk, but anyone who wants to get on Skype with me is welcome to do this too. The ones that we had thought of before were doing a role play where one person is talking to a member of their family who believes that it's good to pay taxes and won't acknowledge your ideas that you've tried to share with them before, that taxes are actually theft. And this family member just can't understand why anyone would not want to pay taxes because he enjoys doing it so much. The second role play that we thought of was, you have a neighbor who's a police officer, and he's off duty, and you see him, you run into him getting the mail, and you want to talk to him about the nature of his job, and you want to ask him some questions. We have a third role play too. Your friend is considering the idea of getting a job as a government school teacher and asks you for some advice. So, and then we thought of, any participants in the audience who would like to do one of these role plays with us, or do one that you thought of in your own. Maybe it's a conversation that you've tried to have many times in the past, or even just one that you've never tried to have because you've been intimidated by it or whatever. You're welcome to try it here today. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, by the way, we just got a cool comment in the chat that I wanted to talk about. Teresa says, I agree that one thing that interferes with people's ability to listen is the tendency to categorize people into groups. And yeah, I really agree with that, Teresa, wholeheartedly. I mean, I see a lot of that on both sides when we're talking about liberty activists and liberty activism. There's kind of this tendency to have a very us versus them mentality and just say anyone who's in a blue uniform or is a bad person, they must be a sadist, they must be evil, to put all of these labels on them as if they're not a human being. And of course this is the very same thing that they do to us. These people don't respect the law, they have no respect for authority, they don't realize that they're part of a society, they want to just do whatever they want, and so on. And so it becomes this very polarized kind of thing where there are two kind of, I guess, groups of people who are seeing each other as part of these stereotyped groups, and not as individuals, and certainly not as human beings. And of course, that's the kind of thing that makes a perfect setup for things like war, police brutality, SWAT raids, that kind of thing. It's really easy for a cop to hurt someone, or for a soldier on, one country's team to kill another soldier, if they view the other person who they're aggressing against as not a human being. And so I think empathy is the thing that really breaks through all of that and really shows your humanity to anyone who you're having a conversation with. Some of the things that I've heard people say as they're being, maybe arrested or having an overt confrontation with someone in the government is some of them have been awesome. Things that just show people's humanity, like, hey, that hurts me. I'm a person. Would you treat your child like this? I've heard all those kind of quotes before, and it's really struck me when I've heard that, because the people who were being arrested at the time had kind of the foresight and the state of mind to be able to say things that really highlight their humanity and try to kind of snap their aggressors out of that state of mind. Oh, so I'm getting a Skype call. We're gonna try this. Let's see if we can get Lauren on the line. Lauren, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me?
I think I can. Hold on one second.
Oh, hold on a second.
Thanks. Okay, so what I'd like to know from the chat is, can people hear me on the chat? Or can people hear Lauren on the chat? I can hear some weird background noise, but I can't necessarily hear Lauren. And, oh, great! Okay. So, Lauren, talk again. Somebody said no, they can't hear, and somebody said yes, they can. So, Lauren is singing Kumbaya. I like that. Okay. Okay, so somebody said no, Lauren, and someone said yes, they can hear her. So I'm gonna try turning Lauren's sound up a little bit. Okay, so Teresa says she can't hear Kumbaya. But Garland says she can. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I guess we can try this. Unplug the earbuds. All right. Try it again. Lauren, can you sing Kumbaya one more time?
Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya. Someone's talking, Lord, Kumbaya.
Yay! Okay, so now that we have Lauren on the line, this is awesome. I'm a little scared to try to do the video in addition to this, but I think we can make it work with sound. So Lauren, did you want to do a role play with me?
I would like to hear a role play, so I thought I'd volunteer, yes.
Awesome! Well, thanks for volunteering. And thanks everybody who shared in the chat. Somebody said, it works, the sound, and make her stop singing. So, they want to hear your intellectual role playing, Lauren. So, did you like any of the ones that I mentioned, that I had pre-thought out before the talk, or did you have one of your own that you wanted to try?
The one where you're at the mailbox talking to your police officer neighbor sounds good. I could probably do the police officer.
Oh, you could be the police officer. Great. Okay. So this is a very out of character persona for Lauren. As we all know, Lauren is a big civil disobedience activist. So it's going to be kind of entertaining for me to hear her playing the part of a cop, but I will be looking forward to it too. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do in this discussion is, do my best to listen to what Lauren is saying, and to show her empathy, and to show her that I recognize her needs, and show her respect, and then respond to any concerns that she has in a way that addresses what I think are her needs and feelings. So, okay, I'm gonna go get the mail, and hi Lauren, how are you?
Oh, just getting my mail here, just doing my chores and, doing things that people ought to do.
That people ought to do. Okay. Um, well, there you go. I was kind of hoping that I would run into you around the neighborhood because I was kind of curious what you thought about the new program that they have at the police department there. I know you've been working there for quite a while. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, I heard that they're bringing in some new dogs, to try to search people's cars and to find drugs. Um, have you used those dogs? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I've know about drug dogs coming in. It's going to make life easier and safer for the officers, and put away some bad people.
So you think that the people who might get caught by these dogs are bad people?
Well, they're breaking the law, so we can't just have lawbreakers running around, can we? Then who knows what would happen after that?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're concerned about people's safety, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I can see that, and I'm definitely concerned about people's safety too. Um, have you ever thought about it from the perspective of someone who maybe is innocent and is also concerned about their safety? I just I feel kind of scared when I see these things, to be completely honest with you, because I've heard a lot of stories about police brutality and about getting the wrong address on things like drug warrants. And I'm really concerned that something like that is going to happen to me or one of my loved ones.
Well, nothing like that happens in our town here, Stephanie. We always get the warrants right, and the dogs are on a leash unless we're trying to somebody runs and then we let them off the leash, and the innocent people are really not going to be. They should be happy to see the dogs coming over to sniff their car because you know they know that dangerous elements and dangerous drugs are not being brought into our town.
Well, yeah, I can see that. I mean, I care about having a safe place to live too. Um, I guess I guess I just kind of wonder, if people who may have drugs in their car, or maybe who the dog just barks, randomly, are gonna get caught up on this, and really they're not hurting anyone. You ever
Well,
thought about it that
I
way?
don't know about the dogs barking randomly, but if there's the dog barks, there's always a human behind it to make sure that some something is there or something is not there that shouldn't be.
And so, what if someone did have, a substance that's considered illegal? Does that um, does that make them a bad person? I mean, I just don't see them hurting anybody. Do you?
Well, they're hurting themselves. You don't want them to, maybe sell the same thing to other people or to little kids. And I think they knew that it was illegal when they started it because they hid it in the ashtray or what have you, and they already knew the penalty. So it was just a risk they took. And darn it, if they didn't, come out on the wrong end of the wager.
So you think it's their fault if they get caught? They get caught up
That's
in
right.
it. That's right. Well, you know, Um, I guess I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I certainly don't want, kids to get their hands on drugs, but do you think that it helps someone to be put in jail if they've just been using a plant or something like that, or if they just have it in their car?
No, it doesn't help anyone. It makes them be averse to getting arrested again, though.
Well, I don't know about that because it seems like a lot of the people who are in the prison system are there just constantly in and out. It's like a revolving door. And then they get put on probation and they're subject to more of the scrutiny. And it seems like they almost kind of can't help but get caught up in the system again. So, I understand, the need for safety and order and that kind of thing. But um, what about these people who are just basically doing something that isn't hurting anyone, but continue to get caught up in the system and put in jail, and they're not really being helped by that?
Well, like, I think they had knowledge beforehand, before they did the crime, because they knew it was a crime and they still did it. And if they get thrown in jail numerous times, it's still their fault.
It's still their fault. Well, um, what about the people who are paying to put them in jail? How do you think that affects them? I mean, do you want to pay to put someone in jail who hasn't hurt anybody? Do you think there's a better
Well,
way to deal with that?
laws have nothing to do with hurting people. They have to do with people being obedient. So, if people pay their taxes and they expect to be protected from crime or lawbreakers, and they, I think they expect that. Yeah, I think if there was no jail, that everybody would be very on edge and nervous.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I do think that people are concerned and they do want safety and protection and all that. Um, but I think people also want to feel like they're doing something effective in their lives, right? And meaningful. And so getting to keep what they earn is also important, right? And maybe paying taxes is not effectively meeting that need that they have for safety, right? It's just kind of taking something that belongs to them. Did you ever think about it that way?
I'm not sure I understand. Can you
Well,
say that again?
sure. Well, I mean, you pay taxes, right?
Right.
And would you pay taxes if there weren't some consequences for that?
I
For
would pay
not
my
paying them?
taxes.
Sorry?
Or we wouldn't have money to pay the police department if nobody paid taxes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know that this is where you work and all that. But do you think that most people pay taxes because they want to, or because they are scared of what's going to happen to them if they don't?
Oh, because they want to. Because nobody goes. The IRS doesn't come around with buckets that put money in and guns. People send it in voluntarily.
Well, I can tell you that I don't send it in voluntarily because I would rather, you know, maybe maybe I would be willing to pay for certain protection services if there were no taxes in a world where the government did not provide those things. However, as it currently stands, I I pay for those things because I'm essentially forced to, and because I'm scared of what will happen to me if I don't. And it's really a shame that that happens because I don't know about you, but I don't know. I would want to work somewhere where people really want my services and pay for it because they like what I do, not because they're scared of what will happen if they don't pay.
Oh, I agree. I think that most people do pay their taxes voluntarily, and that you are a very strange, minority.
I'm a strange minority. Well, I don't know about that because, well, has that been your experience? Like, if you talk to the people around you in your life, do they all say that they like to pay taxes?
Well, they all support the police department. They all obey when I pull them over, and they're all actually very. Most of them are very friendly and compliant.
And what about maybe other government programs? Do they like everything that the government does?
Well, everyone's got something that gets under their skin, but for the most part, people aren't revolting against the government. So I figure they must be doing something right.
Well, do you think that there are things that the government does that people don't like?
Oh, sure. Everybody's got a story of inefficient government thing that happened to them, but it's few and far between.
It's few and far between. So well, what about you? Is there other things that the government does that maybe you don't like so much?
Oh yeah, they gave me this badge. It's not made out of real copper or anything. I mean, look at this thing. It's plastic. But yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, we can't be letting people break laws.
Um, well, okay. I can see how, it might be frustrating, right, when people don't show you respect, right, and your needs for order isn't met, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but there are so many things that the government does that not everybody likes, but they have to pay for it anyway. Do you think that do you think that's justice? Because for me, that doesn't feel like justice.
Well, if you don't like the way the system's working, you can always get in there and change the laws.
Get in there and change the laws. Well, that was something that I tried to do, several years ago when I first moved to New Hampshire. And I found that it was quite frustrating because the changes that I wanted to see just really were not possible by using the political system. And it seemed like every time there was a small step toward progress in that direction, it would get watered down, and one step forward, two steps back. So, and then I also started to question how it would be possible to make those positive changes in a system which uses the government. In other words, how could we use the government to shrink the government itself? What do you think about that? I mean, have you ever felt frustrated by trying to make changes within, say, the police department, and it wasn't effective?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much impossible. But when you want to change the volume on the TV, you go to the TV. You don't go over to the blender. You have to make this change in the system that you want to change.
Sorry, Lauren, can you repeat that?
Yeah, that's if you want to change the laws, you get in there with the lawyers and the legislators, and you don't go to some, I don't know, to the butcher or whatever and try and change things there. You have to do it within the system. Like I'm saying, you don't go to the blender to turn down the volume on the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I can see that it might be frustrating too when people are not following the official channels that you wish they would follow, right?
Well, there's laws, you have to follow the rules.
Yeah. Well, what about in history when there have been laws or rules that have been wrong? For instance, Jim Crow laws. Or
Well,
what about alcohol prohibition?
That's a very small minority. Like
And
once in every 1,000 laws, maybe there's one that needs a change or something. But all in all, it's all working. Everyone knows what's illegal and not illegal because they hide it if it's illegal, and they know the laws, and if people just obey them, everything will be fine.
And during the course of your job, do you ever have laws that you enforce, I guess, but you disagree with those laws?
No, I agree with all the laws.
You agree with every single law?
Yes, but they've all come through the legislation system. That's what they hired me to do.
Okay. So, at this point, I would probably maybe stop for the day, I guess, if I was, just standing out at the mailbox talking to this cop. But, when I've asked this to people before, if there are ever some laws that they disagree with, and they say, I've never heard anyone say, yes, I agree with every single law that's on the books. But, that's definitely a real possibility. So, why I said that maybe I would stop at this point is that if someone says they agree with every single law, then maybe I'm not doing a good job at getting my point across or getting through to them, or maybe they're just really deeply kind of embedded in this mentality, and it's going to take many successive conversations to establish that connection. So
Maybe they make money by putting people in jail and kidnapping people, and it would be almost impossible to get them to give up their career.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for most people, it is going to be like that, especially people I think that are in your family or that you've maybe known for a long time in your life. It can take many different conversations where you're just constantly listening to them, constantly showing empathy, even though you don't agree, obviously, with what they're saying. Asking them questions, being curious. If you just give them that consistent message of listening and empathy and all that. I think it will build a connection. You're going to plant some seeds. They're going to be receptive to what you say, at least to maybe some degree. And so maybe that cop that I was just talking to at the mailbox will go home and think, well, are there any laws that I disagree with in my job? Have I ever broken a law? Do I think it really would help someone if they're thrown in jail for possession of some kind of chemical substance or plant? And even if they don't think of that, maybe they'll hear those ideas articulated again from someone else, and then they'll think about it. So I think even if a conversation kind of goes in that direction, and it seems like the person that you're talking to is just really hardcore and just really believes in this kind of law and order mentality and is a dyed-in-the-wool statist, don't lose heart about that, because you have planted some seeds and you have made some level of progress. And if you just keep on talking to people, and they're going to talk to others, and people will be introduced to the ideas of liberty from somewhere. And then maybe what you said to them, that seed will grow, I guess, for lack of a better word. It'll spark something off in the future. So, Lauren, thanks a lot. You were a great cop.
Oh no! Thanks, Stephanie.
Well, actually, I want to ask you, do you think that doing that role play helped you kind of get behind the mentality of people that you've talked to who maybe are statists and have actually expressed some of these ideas? Was that helpful to kind of get into their mindset?
I think I know their mindset, and it's like, all I have to do is get into that mode of thinking, and I can just rattle off what they usually do.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So, okay, well, thanks a lot. I just have a couple minutes left before I wrap up the talk for the next speaker, but I just want to address some of the chat comments and make a few other comments. The first one, thanks, Lauren. She's probably still watching. So the first one that I want to say is that I think it's really useful to have these role plays. I mean, I was almost a little nervous just talking to Lauren because I was in front of so many people, and it's kind of a public thing, so I get a little bit flustered. But I think Lauren did a great job, and I think it's always helpful for both people, no matter if you're role-playing someone who loves liberty or someone who is a statist. It's really helpful to do those kind of exercises and role plays, if not just to develop the skills of kind of maintaining a really patient and calm demeanor, or figuring out what you're going to say, or whenever you talk to someone else, they're going to throw out some maybe ideas that or responses that you've never heard before, and so it always helps to practice so you're just kind of ready for anything. So just before you go, really quickly, in the chat everybody said great job to Lauren. Somebody said it's going to be tough to generate empathy, well, if you're in that situation in person. That was Zeke in the chat. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you that sometimes it can be really, really tough to think of other people empathetically and really connect with what they're feeling and needing. And practice doing it, but above all else, just remember that they are a human being, even if they're in a blue uniform. You probably thought maybe similarly to them at one point, and it's really, really important to remember that. So I think I better wrap up now. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I can't believe we have like 50 viewers. That was a lot more than I was expecting. So I guess you can catch this talk on archive as well. And thanks a lot for coming. And just remember, above all else, listen when you're talking about liberty. It always helps to listen more, talk less, I guess you can say. Show empathy, and and practice every day, and you're gonna do great. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And thanks, George. Thanks, George, for organizing this. This has been great. Okay, bye.